All right, party peoples of the interwebs, Viva Frei, former Montreal litigator turned current Florida rumbler, still in Canada, but getting ready to go back to the sunny, free state of Florida as we speak. Gonna get back to my home office, my studio, my regular schedule. I'm looking forward to it. The news of the day, it has now been about 30 hours since the terror attack in New Orleans, which was carried out by a man named Shamsud-Din Jabbar, a 42-year-old veteran, former real estate agent who plowed his rented Ford pickup truck through Bourbon Street at 3 a.m, killing, I think it's up to 15 people, maiming countless others. There was apparently another potential terror attack in Las Vegas, a Cybertruck packed with fireworks, gasoline, other explosives, which was detonated outside of a Trump hotel. We're still looking into that one. Apparently, the perpetrator of that failed attack because the Cybertruck actually contained the explosion that was intended to wreak havoc. The perpetrator of that, who's dead, had military experience, but we'll get to that one later. The information is still breaking on that one. Getting to the terror attack in New Orleans. Shamsud-Din Jabbar, 42-year-old man, Army veteran. We know this because he had put out a 1.5-minute YouTube video about 4 years ago where he was launching his real estate project venture, and he was talking about how he was a conscientious individual, dots all the I's, crosses all the T's, had mentioned that he was born and raised in Texas. In fact, the only time he spent abroad was 10 years when he was in the military, serving as a human resource specialist. We now know a lot more of the alleged attacker. He's dead. He was killed in a shootout after plowing through the crowd, got out firing at the crowd. Police took him down, but not after he killed 15 people. We now know 42 years old, divorced twice, living in squalor in a trailer park just outside of Houston. The New York Post reporting, and I don't know if it's intended to be not humorous, but whatever, remarking on the fact that he had goats and sheep roaming around his squalid trailer park where he was living. Twice divorced, which apparently left him in financial ruin. We don't know when the individual was radicalized, but we know that he was radicalized. Why? Because attached to the back of the pickup truck was an ISIS flag, which was strewn about on the street, investigators taking pictures of it. So it was quite clear from the first minute of this attack that it was ideologically motivated, if not outright terror. Ask the FBI, however, and they come out with public announcements saying, we have ruled out terror. Or they said at the beginning, this is not a terror attack. They said this when the news was being reported after it would have been clear to anybody that it was a terror attack. They told the public it wasn't a terror attack, only to quickly, I suspect, have to take that back because the dude was flying a ISIS flag from the back of the pickup truck after he rammed it into the crowd. Moreover, the FBI apparently is in possession, or was in possession, we don't know for how long, of video of alleged accomplices of this attacker, because now they're being reporting that he wasn't acting alone, that he had accomplices, that some of these accomplices in this coordinated attack were planting explosives or explosive devices throughout New Orleans. So when the FBI comes out and says, not a terror attack, if only briefly, they knew it was a terror attack at the time, telling the public falsehoods. How long they were in possession of video of other accomplices placing explosive devices throughout New Orleans, who knows? Who knows anymore? What's pretty clear, however, is that this individual, if he wasn't radicalized during his decade plus abroad as a human resource specialist, was radicalized at some point in recent history. And if you had an FBI who maybe wasn't dedicating all the resources that they have, maybe they have more resources than that, but dedicating disproportionate exponential resources to prosecuting and persecuting Jan 6 grannies or people who pray in front of Planned Parenthood clinics, maybe if they were actually focusing on actual domestic terrorism, not that white nationalist alleged terrorism, the greatest threat to America. Spoiler alert, this dude was not a white nationalist homegrown terror cell. What might be also clear, it's being reported by Jack Posobiec, is that the suspect had been reported to his seniors, or at least to the people in command in the military, that he had been radicalized. And they didn't want to look into it, according to Jack Posobiec, who is quite reliable, but this is still the early stages of fog of war where some information might turn out to be less accurate than others. Apparently, they didn't want to look into it because they didn't want to cause any racial issues. any religious issues within the military. You know, kind of like if you go to England, where Tommy Robinson is now still in solitary confinement after being found guilty and sentenced for contempt of court for violating the gag order that he was not to publish the truth, allegedly, about that Syrian incident, the boy with the Syrian in England. The rape gangs that roamed and terrorized England for decades, it was known to authorities, but they didn't want to make an issue of it because there was a certain nationality to the alleged perpetrators of this. I'm not even calling it a grooming gang anymore, rape gang. They didn't want to tackle the issue because it was racial, at least statistically racialized based on the perpetrators. And so they let it go. They ignored it for a long time so as not to create racist, religious discord among the population. We might be witnessing some of that right now back in America. The man might have been reported or allegedly was reported for having been radicalized. Nobody wanted to look into it. Nobody wanted to make an issue with it because nobody wanted to stoke racial religious divide within the military. Where he was living, by the way, also not worth nothing. In the trailer park, these squalid conditions in which he was living, when the New York Post or some other journalists went on the property, oddly enough, journalists from the reporting got there before intelligence, but set that aside. Apparently, it's a highly immigrant neighborhood, Pakistani immigrants in this neighborhood. Apparently the neighbors were telling the journalists they don't speak English. Maybe they were doing that to avoid giving interviews, but the New York Post or whoever it was where I read it was reporting that this was very much a community of Pakistani immigrants. And so you have a man radicalized whenever, obviously off the radar, maybe off the radar, who knows? Maybe they're going to come out now, the FBI is going to say, yeah, he was on the radar, who managed to plow his car into a crowd of New Year's Eve celebrating Americans at 3 a.m. Also, how did he get his car down there? You won't believe this, because I tweeted it out the other day. If the only thing the government did was nothing, if they were only good for nothing, we would already be one step in the right direction. The problem is they are good for destruction. Why was this man allowed to do this, or not allowed in the sense of authorized, but how was this facilitated? Why didn't they have those steel bollards, I think is the word, those pipes that prevent vehicular traffic from going into highly pedestrian areas? You know, there was the attack in New York. They put them up on the street in Times Square. There was the attack in Europe, I forget where it was exactly, where someone plowed a pickup truck, a bigger truck, killed 86 people. You put the bollards up there so that pedestrian traffic doesn't get plowed over by vehicular traffic. Why were there no bollards in New Orleans on Bourbon Street? Oh, well, there were, you see. But they took them down to revamp them, to upgrade them. And so when they took down the old bollards, which were doing their job so poorly, nothing ever happened until they took them down, they didn't put up any sort of interim bollards to prevent this from happening on New Year's Eve. Also, I think the Super Bowl is going to be in New Orleans, and there's a Sugar Bowl or another football event there. And so they had pedestrian traffic on Bourbon Street in New Orleans, but they took down the protective barriers and didn't put up temporary ones because they were upgrading them. Libs of TikTok had reported that there was potentially a metal one that they could have raised if they chose not to. That report hasn't been corroborated. So whether or not they had one that they could have lifted but chose not to, New York Post had reported that they had protective bollards that they took down to upgrade them and didn't put anything there in the interim. Nothing. Not a cement blockade, which would have done the job. Nothing. Leaving the civilian population at the mercy of terrorist would-be attackers. And that's it. So the people are dead in the streets, literally, because of government incompetence, government corruption. Who the hell knows why they didn't do it? Maybe it was cheaper. Maybe they're just idiots. Don't attribute to malice what you can attribute to incompetence. At some point, with enough of this series of these idiotic incompetence acts, it becomes malice, but set that aside. It wasn't there because they took it down and didn't put it back up. And then you have, I don't know who the politician is, posting a selfie or a picture on Twitter. Oh, the people of New Orleans are resilient, and New Orleans is resilient, and come and see the beautiful city, eating at a beautiful, fancy steakhouse. I think it was called Prime Rib or something. The day of the attack. And I understand the argument, you don't let terrorists win, you get out there, you be defiant, and you go out and live life. But there's a little bit of tone deafness when people are quite literally laying dead in the streets because of government incompetence at best, and you are touting a picture of you eating at a fancy steakhouse with your own private security. These people, the politicians, don't run the risk of being the victims of their own incompetence, if you want to call it that. But they get out there with all of their security, with their lavish lifestyles, with all of their security and everything, and then say, oh, we will stand together. Yeah, we're all in this together, except some of us are lying dead in the street and some of us are eating at fancy steakhouses. So that is the update. We'll see where the news goes from this. We're still looking into who the attacker was, where he was radicalized, who might have been part of this network of radicalization that he quite clearly went through, whether or not the military had advanced knowledge or warning of this. And we're looking into the one in Las Vegas, whether or not this is coordinated among disgruntled or radicalized military personnel. That is it. What a way to reign in the new year with death and catastrophe resulting from grotesque government malfeasance. If you like what I do, you know what to do. Like, share, subscribe, make sure notifications are turned on. I will be back in Florida, back to my schedule, back to the sunny, green, lush, free state of Florida. And I can't say that I'm not missing it. I'm missing it. I'm excited to get there. Viva Frei, thank you for tuning in. Now you know your vlog. Peace out, peace. Booyah!
Good evening. I'm Shamsud-Din, Jabbar, property manager with Blue Meadow Properties and team lead at the Midas Group at Core Realty. I just want to say hello and let you know a little bit about me. So I'm born and raised in Beaumont, Texas, and now live in Houston. And I've been here all my life, with the exception of traveling for the military, where I spent 10 years as a human resources specialist and IT specialist, where I learned the meaning of great service and what it means to be responsive and take everything seriously, dotting I's and crossing T's to make sure that things go off without a hitch. So I've taken those skills and applied them to my career as a real estate agent, where I feel like what really sets me apart from other agents is my ability to be able to, one, be a fierce negotiator. So not only do I brilliantly market your property to make sure it gets sold as quickly as possible or gets leased as quickly as possible, but I'm also going to take every ounce of energy and putting it into negotiating for you and for your property to get the best deal that you can possibly get for it. So once we get to the closing table, all the I's are going to be dotted, all the T's are going to be crossed, everything's going to go off without a hitch. And that is my word that I'm giving to you as your real estate agent. So if that's the type of agent you're looking for, reach out to me. You see my phone number on the page. If not, it's 832-774-9718. Give me a call. And even if you don't want to have me as your agent, call me with any questions you may have. So even if you're a first-time home buyer, or you're an experienced real estate investor and you're just looking for somebody to help you with doing some analysis on some properties that you're looking at, either way, give me a call. I'm glad to help anytime, and I'm looking forward to talking to you.